Johnny Fontana, Real World NF Scorpio, back with another video. Today we're going to talk about INFJ dating, right?
So they have this like goal, which is not the actual goal. Their goal is more like an illusion. Oh, if I get that validation, I'm gonna feel happy in the end after the sex, right? Which doesn't really happen. And it just like gets so caught up in the interaction. It's just like trying to achieve this goal. It's like chasing this goal that they can never actually relax and enjoy the interaction. And every interaction they're gonna have with a woman is gonna be like this like mental race. This like their brain going in circles on how to pull the girl, on how to like move her, on how to isolate her, on how to close her, and how to escalate. And it's like I don't fucking know, like all this like fucking pickup.
Um, I've been married for 15 years, but nonetheless, I do my own research. I'm always figuring things out, always trying to understand human behavior, right? So I dabble in a lot of YouTube watching, figuring things out, putting myself in other people's shoes, even though I don't necessarily engage intimately with others. However, I do engage, and so I do pick up on, on sort of what do you call it again? Sort of signals, choosing signals. I pick up on like flirting vibes. I flirt myself. I mean, it's just natural, right? Obviously, we are human, so I mean, we have to have an adult conversation, especially as it pertains to dating, intimacy, and overall interaction, right? Especially with someone with whom you are attracted to. And my theory, this is a working theory. This is a 0.25%, but normally, again, with that intuition, based on like references that I have from within, I can safely say that self-awareness and intuition tops social skills. Okay? And right off the bat, people don't get it because they don't understand the perspective, right? But again, it's not to undermine those who have social skills or those who represent certain communities who advise different approaches and different concepts, right? It's not about undermining anyone. It's not about undermining the pickup, PUA, or whatever. That's not what I do. I don't go into other communities and talk crap about them. I provide perspective. I may reference them, but it's not to undermine them. Self-awareness. You have to know who you are. You have to know your capabilities. Again, this is not to undermine the PUA, but the thing is that what people don't realize, okay, is that when PUA provide their techniques, the thing is you need to go out and you need to socialize, which is good. Nothing wrong with socializing. That's what we need to do because as humans, we need to socialize. However, there's a difference between socializing and getting to know people, figuring them out at a distance, right? At a surface level, versus going out and approaching women in order to try to, date them or so forth and so on. I do advise approaching people, women or whomever that you subscribe to intimately, whether it be same sex or opposite sex. However, that may not always be beneficial because then it may lead to you passing a threshold, okay? And that threshold is who you are in your default state. You see what I'm saying to you? Again, because there's so many different underlying factors, it's not simple because you have to hold different concepts in your mind. So when it just comes to just meeting people casually, you have a different mindset. And it's kind of hard for a person, again, because we're human and, chemistry and all these different chemicals that sort of are involved, okay? When you are set out, I'm going to go out and approach woman for the sake of trying to achieve a certain level of confidence, it's very difficult for the brain to rewire itself and say, oh, I'm only doing it because I'm trying to practice. Because what happened is that it's difficult for, let's say something does arise, for you to now switch back and says, oh, well, I'm not going to take on that signal or that advancement, right? Or that response, that receptiveness, and say, oh, well, this is just for practice only. No, obviously you're going to engage and indulge, right? And if something comes out of it, then it's perfect. You see what I'm saying to you? But again, you hold several different concepts in your mind. So what I'm saying is that the whole idea of approaching is for the end goal, and for you to become confident in approaching women and dating women, which is fine. But again, that's under the assumption that you're trying to gain intimacy, okay, relationship status as the end result, versus you're going out and you're approaching people, not necessarily women, but just people in general. So yes, I do advise going out and meeting people, but not for the sake of that end result, which is very difficult to sort of separate, when you are in that training mode. Okay.
And that was a big problem for me. And even today, even like up to this day, I'm still like poisoned by that like pick-up mentality. So a lot of times, a lot of those like I will get like a lot of those like triggers like from the past, from my like gamey past, where I'm gonna be in an interaction with a woman and everything will be just like very chill and nice. I'm just gonna be enjoying. It's like maybe for a few seconds, I'm just gonna like get this like sort of like mental flashback that, oh, I have to win something, or I have to like do this, and it just like really has poisoned my interactions with women. And this is like such a huge problem that I see in all my students. They always perceive the interaction with a woman as like something that they have like to consciously put effort on, as something that they have like to just like try to get. It's like, oh, there's like this like angle, which is like the sex. And it's not really the sex, because a lot of those guys, they don't even enjoy the sex. They just actually do it to get the +1. They just actually do it to get that validation from the sex, right? So they have this like goal, which is not the actual goal. Their goal is more like an illusion. Oh, if I get that validation, I'm gonna feel happy in the end after the sex, right? Which doesn't really happen.
It's very difficult because people aren't able to hold these complexes because it's just too complex. Okay. So you have to be self-aware in knowing that if you are an introvert, like for example, me, I'm introverted. I don't like approaching people. I'm shy. Yes, I can get behind a camera. I can be a DJ. I can do this because I have a sense of confidence. I've been doing it for a while, and the purpose is to help others, right? Create a good time for them, make their weekend pass, and allow them to go and make them feel better than what they came in. That's the goal. But naturally, I am not one to approach women. I have approach anxiety. I don't do that. I go out there. You see what I'm saying to you? Some people have approach anxiety, but they're generally extroverted people. They're just shy with that. So for them, yes, for them, that transition will be easier. And not only would it be easier, but they won't go beyond a threshold, okay? Because they need to meet their threshold, okay? Because their threshold is being extroverted, So if you are not in that state already, then yes, you need to practice. You need to engage in all of that. Same thing for us, in order to understand people, in order to understand different social dynamics and human behavior, you need to approach situations, but not from a place of, hey, how you doing, but from a place of asking different people different questions, asking people of different career fields, different backgrounds. How does this relate to this? How does that relate to that? So I met a female who is a pre-K studies, right, teacher, but she majored in Latin studies. So I was able to discuss issues with my Asiatic eyes. Where does that come from? And it was able to discuss some of the history and the Moors and this, that, and the third, and how there was mixed blood and so forth and so on. but that's because I want to be able to connect dots, not for the sake of trying to, Now, while, discussing these things, yeah, things may come up. You may look, you may be intrigued by certain features, and so forth and so on, by the way she speaks, by the way she carries herself. But then again, you have to limit yourself, because you have to be, aware of your situation, right? And not to over-engage or overindulge. Now, I know this is getting kind of heady, but it's very important that you understand what is to follow. So now, you have to be aware that you can't approach and not be met with that, oh man, like I've passed. Because once you pass that threshold of just that natural threshold of you being introverted, now you become into this, you pass that threshold and you come into the state of, I'm always out engaging. Then now it becomes the reverse now. Now it's like you can't stop that. Now you need that in order to thrive, to survive, right? Socially, but then your default state just becomes rewired.
And I used to do that. I used to fucking do that. I'm not gonna lie. I used to be like one of those guys. And it's just like the only thing that it brought me was mental, if you want to call it pain, right? Because I would just get like stuck into that thing for like days and weeks, and then like I would like have a high, I would go on a high note, then I would have like abundance, and a lot of like girls in my rotation, and like things would just like seem to roll. But then next week, when I wouldn't get like even more girls, when I wouldn't like achieve like the goal of previous week, when I wouldn't achieve the results of previous week, I would just like go fucking depressed, right? And this happened to my wings, this happened to my friends, this happened to a lot of students of mine in the past, and basically this is gonna happen to you if you don't snap out of this like toxic mentality of seeing the game as the ultimate goal, because that's not what the game is. The interaction with the woman and the sex is not the ultimate goal.
You know what I'm saying to you? And all bad things can happen from that. Narcissism, this, that, and the third, and always the need for validation, always the need to have people around you, and so forth and so on. And then from there, you end up being depressed, subconsciously, and not knowing why you're suppressed and depressed, but because of the fact that you always needed this validation, always needed. It's the same thing with the internet. Always needed the likes and dislikes, not really realizing why it's that. It's because all those buttons and pulls are being pushed in order for you to get that validation reward. So that's why self-awareness is like, hey, I am not the type to go out and, approach a whole lot of people. You see what I'm saying to you? Randomly. When I say to approach, engage, it doesn't necessarily mean to go out randomly and meet people. It's if you are in a particular situation and there's something in common, like let's say at a restaurant, and you want to know, hey, I've been thinking about this. How does, for example, I just came out of Cracker Barrel. How does, waitress, and how has it, affected you? Because you looked at that person, you were like, hey, based on the features, that person seems a bit this way. So say, hey, you seem like you're with it. How has, waitress and this environment, helped you? Or how has it affected you? Obviously, these people, because they may not be as analytical and deep as you, so they meant to give you some surface response. Also because of the fact that you have to be aware that they need to keep it moving because it's a busy environment. But again, like those are the kind of questions because of that setting, right? So you're aware of where you are rather than just walking up to random someone and asking a question. Hey, you seem like such and such and such. What have you? Say what? Because it's out of context. You know what I'm saying to you? So you need to be aware and self-aware, and not only self-aware, but acknowledge and be comfortable with the fact that I or you are not the type of people to just randomly approach. Because this is this guilt. Again, this is not to undermine anyone, but this is like a sense of guilt that we feel because it's like, oh man, I'm not like them. I'm not like the type, like I can't, like, if I can't approach, then I'm never going to meet someone. So yes, realize this is perspective that not everyone is able to do that. Now, this leads into the intuition. Intuition is that when you are around someone, okay, and it happens that you are around a person that you deem compatible with you based on intuition. Unfortunately for us, because we don't make these these continuous approaches every day, our numbers are limited. That's why in the pickup community it says, oh, it's a numbers game, because you have to approach. For us, it can be very depressing and can be very lonely because we don't do these approaches. We prefer to be lonely, we prefer to be on our own, and when the situation comes up, we may not necessarily take advantage of it. This is where social skills helps, because if the opportunity is there, the more developed you are socially, you can engage and take that opportunity. So that's what I'm saying. It does not necessarily mean that your social skills that you cannot develop, or you shouldn't. You need to. But what I'm saying is that what takes priority is the self-awareness in knowing that you don't go out, you don't do these things, and that you're not one of these people who are always going to be engaged, in like extroverted sense, and then going out meeting people, So for example, my cousins, my friend, every time I go out, always pushing me, hey, go out, go meet this person, go, you're a little bee, because you didn't, approach this or whatever. And I mean, notwithstanding the fact that I'm married, but the fact is, like, we're boys, we're out there, and it's like, dude, it's like, I'm not that. Like, you are the one who's always chasing, approaching people. And sometimes they get lucky, and it's good. And sometimes you sit there and like, man, like, how are they able to do that? And I'm not, and so forth. And you get into your mind, and but then you have to be self-aware. You have to be able to put your mind in that state, comfort yourself, and say, listen, that's not who I am. I am not that. I am not someone who's going to go out there and be on social media, this, that, and the third, just like other people. However, listen to this, though, as it pertains to how we have now become inverted now.
For example, you have a creative breakthroughs like a band like Pantera or Nirvana or the Beatles, and everybody goes, oh, I'll do that. And styles that are easily imitatable are more likely to become popular. So if the audience rewards the lack of ingenuity, well, if you're on the sidelines and you're watching that happen, the path of independence, which is who am I? I'm an individual, I'm going to have to forge my own path, which Nicole and Jeff and Mike all did long before they met me. It's too hard. It's actually easier just to get in the train and just ride like everybody else. So because this generation and the past couple generations have rewarded that imitation, it's a quickening to where it's like art imitates life, life imitates art, to where you can't separate anymore. And then the journalist can't separate, and the audience doesn't separate. So
you see what I'm saying to you? So now it's almost the norm, and that you are praised for doing that because that's what everyone is doing. So now, because you are different, if you are not part of the system, right? You now look like a black sheep, as Billy Corgan says here.
It's like a woman who refuses to get plastic surgery, and all her friends are like this at 55. If people around her don't appreciate the fact that she's aging gracefully, well, you see, it inverts itself. So a band like Smashing Pumpkins sticks out precisely because we won't go along with the inversion.
You see what I'm saying? So it becomes inverted. Now, here's the thing. Once you now are met, okay, after a long period of time, depression, bounce, whatever, you need to be able to keep calm, keep yourself in tune with the fact that, hey, I'm self-aware. I know that I don't need that. That's why when you are in state, right, when you're not running away from the fact that I'm lonely, I don't have any relationships, when you already know that I don't need a relationship, and the opportunity comes because now you have that social, skills and social ability, you can approach and engage. But that person is going to be met with your intuitive signals. So you're going to look at that person who says, hey, yeah, that person, is compatible with me. Then you're going to engage with that person, and that person is going to speak and say certain things, and you'll be like, hey, that person reminds me of such and such and such and such and such. And then from there, based on your intuition, you'll know, hey, you know what, let me engage with this person in a way that's not going to mess up my interaction with that person. Whereas the last time I had a conversation with this individual and I messed it up because I was too forward, I was too clingy, I was too analytical, I was too awkward, and so forth and so on. Now, this is where the intuition lies, is because you have to know that, you know what, the last time I dealt with this kind of a person, that person was receptive to me, okay, and to who I am. and is accepting of my behaviors and my awkwardness, because that person is somewhat the same or maybe different but more accepting. So I've always asked my wife, how is it that, you're so different than me, but like you accept my ways, right? You accept. And I think I have a clip that I can show you and explain to you why she understands me. All right? But initially, remember, like, we had a hard time.
Yeah, I was even questioning why I even bother. But you know what it is?
Why?
Okay. Some people not like my answer because it's gonna be like, oh, well, that makes sense why she stayed with him. You know what I mean? Skip that. Skip that thought from what I'm about to say. But I think it did play the role, the fact that I grew up around a lot of Scorpios. Gave me immediate understanding, and like a lot of family Scorpios around me. A lot. Grandma, cousin, brother, sister, father. I mean, like, and like immediate family. So I think that's one thing. Just on an instinct level, there's a level of recognition of the dynamic and the people without even consciously being there as a child and whatnot. And I think there, like, one secret word I said is the father. Because I remember when I was dating you, and I said it, I've been saying this for years. I believe I picked you from the level of subconscious, not rationale. And I think it's recognition. I recognize behaviors. I recognize its familiarity. But now being together for years and years and years and cultivating this, now I actually have explanations of all those things.
Of
what those people are, how they were, why. Even though it's a lot of similarities, at the same time, a lot of differences. A lot of differences, but at the same time, quite a few things are similarities. My dad was quiet doer in the name of good of others. Right? So there was a lot of that.
So you see what I'm saying to you? So she says that because I was wondering, how is it that you're able to get me, whereas other people wouldn't be, and other women, they wouldn't be able to get me, even though they're extroverted. She says because there's a resemblance to her father. And so her father was like me, very analytical, very deep, very this, very that. So it comes from a surface, but more from like from a subconscious point of view. You see what I'm saying to you? So that's what she said. So, and also because she knew her father, she knew how her father can get deep. I reminded her of that, so that's why she understands it. And also living with me now, it's allows her to understand her siblings. You see what I'm saying to you, on a way that she wasn't able to before, because we're similar. I'm a Scorpio, her sister's a Scorpio, her father was a Scorpio, and her brother's a Scorpio. You see what I'm saying to you? So a lot of the traits that I have and carry are the same as her. So now she's able to better approach them, because she knows, okay, when I'm dealing with him, obviously there's differences, but generally speaking, when I'm dealing with him, and that's why my sister-in-law, I'll play this for you when she says this as it pertains to Scorpio. What was the energy you felt when you first arrived in the house? Like, what were you, and honest, you can be honest, what was the energy? Obviously, I'm Scorpio, so what was the energy that you were feeling?
Yes, I felt that there lives some other Scorpio. So I felt that I came in another person's space. So I felt that I need to appreciate that it's not my home. I need to know their rules and go with those rules. I felt, that there is a little bit...
It's more of like, I was trying to figure out what you were doing. Like you were sleeping, if you were up, if you were there, are you okay? That's why I would call you sometimes. Just trying to like,
Yeah.
But I could also sense, like there's another private person in here. And it was kind of weird at first, because I was like...
felt the same, that I came in another person's space. Like.
You see, so she felt that I was a Scorpio. Even though you are into that or not, but again, you understand like how things are, people that being distanced and so forth and so on, because again, it's not through osmosis. It's not like you feel something in the air. It's because I didn't approach. And then she's also heard, from my wife, how I'm a Scorpio and how we're always the same. And my wife would come to me and says, hey, you're always the same. So she would report the same thing to her. So when she came over here, there was certain assumptions. It wasn't through osmosis that she just knew. It's because, again, based on the assumptions from before, information that she received before, and she connected the dots. That's how intuition works. It's not just, I'm going to come in blind, be born, come down from yesterday's rain, and know exactly how someone is going to feel or react. It's based on previous reactions. I hope now you sort of started to see and connect the dots. And that's why I don't parse the cognitive functions and do all that stuff. Because again, when you parse and do all the cognitive functions, you don't really get this. It's kind of difficult because again, logical. This is very, very free, very fluid, right? So you cannot chart these interactions. So to sort of now close it, you have the self-awareness, but it's self-awareness, but also be calm and understand and acknowledge and be okay with you not doing that and not always chasing, oh man, I can't believe I'm not like that. However, it's also part of it is understanding that yes, you are going to have these moments of, man, I wish I was like that. I wish. So for example, if I'm here and I'm seeing a woman there walk by, I have these impulses, right? I have these, I want to go chase. I want to go, taste. But again, what stops you is, sense of integrity, sense of ethics. Okay, you're married, don't do that, And number two, where is that going to lead you? You see what I'm saying to you? You're going to walk up to that person's on their way to do a certain thing. It's not really, reasonable, okay, to go up to someone randomly because that person went to go pick up their coat and come back. That person's going back to their family. But a lot of people, again, they react on impulse. They do that, and that's why a lot of people get hemmed up. Because again, here's one thing that I will tell you for INFJs. I've been married 15 years. Okay, yeah, we have ups and downs, but we don't go to bed angry, whatever. Because again, what I bring to the table is experience from the military, from law enforcement, so forth and so on, and a lot of mentorship. Okay, so I brought a lot of that to the relationship. If I didn't bring that, it would have been a little bit more difficult because I would have been immature. I would not have known how to carry myself and so forth and so on. But I brought a lot of leadership traits and knowing how to, communicate. And if I'm a little whatever, I back up a little bit. I listen to that person, and I apologize and I see things from that person's perspective, even though I can be controlling and so forth and so on. But a lot of that has been instilled in me through my different careers. However, it's still that sense of self-awareness of knowing what you're capable of doing, who you are, and what you bring to the table. You see what I'm saying to you? However, if I didn't have that, things would have gone bad. Trust me, because I have, a temper, and if I didn't know how to control it, and calm down from it, if I don't have proper FE, and to be like, oh man, you know what, I shouldn't have said that, and really realize things would have gotten hairy, right? So being married for 15 years, okay, allows me to really understand the ins and outs of the relationships. You see what I'm saying to you? And say that, yeah, the things are going to come to this point. But if you aren't self-aware, okay, and realize that you cannot run after everyone. You cannot go after every tail. And not only that, just by you going after every tail doesn't mean that that person is compatible with you, unless it's for a particular situation. But guess what? You also have to be self-aware in the fact that, and here's what I'm going to say now, okay? Now you have to realize, from an introvert's perspective, going after tail when you've actually engaged so much energy, right? Because again, we as introverts, we have to generate so much, like, to get to know someone, right? And like to really like muster all that energy and frame of mind to actually approach someone. That's one thing. But then you also now have to be able to sustain that. You see what I'm saying to you? And that's why I said with that whole threshold, just because you muster up the ability to approach, someone who may not be compatible with you, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to sustain that person. And that's why I referenced my wife. She was able to sustain me because, again, there was a relationship and there was a sense of familiarity, that she's experienced innately, okay, with her father. So there's that, okay? Man, there's so many things in my mind that I'm losing my focus now with so many concepts. But the point that I'm trying to make is that once you now reach to that point of you generate and you muster all of that, okay? Now let's say you come in contact with someone. Guess what? It's like sort of like the reverse now. You know what I'm saying to you? Again, it's not for everyone. That's why you have to maintain perspective. This is not for everyone. I'm not giving this advice for everyone. It's for the introverts, especially the INFJs, because we think, we muster, and then we now approach. And then so now we sort of want that to come back to us. You see what I'm saying to you? That is different to, let's say you are in Thailand, you are young or you are old or whatever, and you are engaged in let's say, massage or some kind of like quick act. So it's like, so like you didn't really generate, or you didn't really, you didn't invest a lot of your time and energy, and it just came quick because it was as a result of you trying to, quench, your sexual desires, right? You can sort of separate from that. Or let's say, there's something there and, there's some tension built between you and someone and you have a quickie. That's separate than you now invest in your time and you muster in all that in order to approach someone, because then that person, you know what I'm saying to you, needs to sort of be receptive to that. And if they're not, it sort of like makes things hard. So that's why we get sort of that's why we get clingy sometimes, initially. But again, with social skills you're able, and self-awareness, you learn, okay, don't be so clingy, don't do this. Intuition, what happened then last time, they scared people away, so don't say certain things, don't do this. So you learn from your mistakes, okay? Like my father says, experiences through bad choices, right? That's basically how you learn. I forget how you put it. Matter of fact, I'll put the clip so that you can hear what he said. Now, but is this something that you've learned and have been able to cultivate over the years?
Absolutely. After all, good judgment comes from experience, which comes from bad judgment. That's what they say, right? So, made a lot of mistakes along the way. I had my own infrastructure, 50 plus employees with independent contractors. Now I work primarily as a consultant. For me, it's no longer 6 degrees of separation, but more like 2 or 3. I can get you to meet pretty much anyone if I feel that you have the right project and it deserves to be taken to certain people.
You see, so he's really into that kind of stuff. So he's showed me a lot, and but I never remember his quotes. But I can always reference them though, right? But again, so there's a difference between going after that quick, because you don't generate a lot of thought. It's just there. It's easy. Versus us, we generate and we muster all of this, so then we want a return on our investment. It's the same thing like connect the dots. If you spend a whole lot of money on a car, you want that car to last you. Like you pay for what you get what you pay for. So if I spend, money, but in this case, my time, my energy, my thoughts, okay, as opposed to someone else, I'm going to want something out of it. Versus an SC or someone who's just out there approaching, you're not going to want to receive all of that because it's just surface, and it's for them, it's like quick day, quick. So now for us, yes, there is a place for this. There is a place for both. You know what I'm saying? That's why we need to be able to separate it and be able to hold different concepts in our minds. Some people are only into that. Some people are only into here. But some of us like this, well developed, we could hold different concepts in our minds and be able to say, yeah, I understand where infidelity comes from. I understand this. I understand. It's not because, necessarily this. Let's go ahead and give you a quote from Esther Perel on infidelity and how it pertains to someone who's finding themselves. You see what I'm saying to you? So we can be able to hold these concepts and understand where they come from. So, it's just being able to just separate these things. But going back to what I was saying as far as the threshold now, once you now do this whole quick, then you reach that threshold, which is that's what you want. You're always after that quick high. It's the same with pornography, right? You want that quick high, quick release. And therefore the intimacy, it's just like it takes too much time. And so I'm like, I'd rather go for the quick. And that's one of the dangers. And it's not to undermine PUA, but that's one of the dangers for INFJs. I'm not saying for the SC types because they can deal with that. They can deal with those things. But for us, INFJs who are well developed, we invest. And that's why if we go too much, we'll sort of, that reverse will get into that whole narcissism thing that I talked about. It'll become the norm, and we won't be able to develop ourselves in order to retain that sense of normalcy. And that's why a lot of the times now, okay, this is not to undermine any other MGTOW or PUA, but a lot of the advice is do your own thing, do that, do this, do that, whatever. Not realizing that while you're doing your thing and you're still going for that whole quick, it's still feeding the beast. It's not actually helping with being self-aware, knowing who you are, right? Because a lot of these people who are into the MGTOW and PUA, they're not self-aware. They don't realize, you're not into that stuff. Don't follow that advice. It's not that it's bad advice, but it's not advice for you. You see what I'm saying to you? Certain information applies, but for you it's not a one size fits all because we have different personalities. So you have to be self-aware in order to know what advice fits you and fits your personality type. And then from there, you need to now invoke that intuition to say, okay, hey, I'm going to deal with this person because in the past I've had good relations with that past person, and that person is going to be receptive to who I am, my quirkiness, me not wanting to be so alpha all the time, and this, that, and the third. I'm alpha with my wife, but then she's also alpha as well. So there's shared, alphaness. But she tells me that she wants me to be the man because she wants, if I was too weak, then she'd run all over me. Because again, she's from Eastern Europe, so forth and so on. And again, because I reminded her of her father. So again, that whole father figure and this, that, and the third, So a lot of these play a role. But again, that's all through instinctiveness. That's how she said. It was through instinct and rather than just the surface thing. So now to recap, for INFJ specific, okay, intuitive types, so who are NI, FE, SE, TI types, it's more so of being self-aware, knowing who you are, and understanding that you're going to feel the pressure. You're going to, because we're just natural. You're going to feel these urges to want to do what everyone else does. But then you now need to be able to come back to this video and revert and say, hey, whoa, I'm not that. That's not who I am. Then therefore know that, yes, to go from here to actually meeting someone is going to take longer because we're not like the other types who are going because it's a numbers game. So therefore, we're going to take less shots, which means less baskets. The more shots you take, the more baskets. The less shots, the less baskets, right? So then, but once you meet that person, you need to now understand intuition, right? Be able to develop your intuition, go back and recall, engage with people who you've interacted with, not based on constantly meeting people, but meeting people in your everyday situation and so forth. Oh yeah, you know what? When I was in school, I really related to that individual and so forth. I liked her. She was really cool. And hey, you know what? Are things working? Whatever. And then now you use that social skill in order to like engage and like take the chance and says, hey, would you like to go out and so forth? He says, yeah, I never thought you would ask me, because I'm shy or this, that, and the third, or what have you. And then, and then usually the relationship goes on from there. There's no guarantee that it's going to last because, again, people change. But again, you need to establish that self-awareness, that intuition, and knowing that social skills help, but it's not going to be at the forefront because you need someone who's compatible with you even before you start engaging these social skills. You can't beat someone into loving you, and that's why you have a lot of divorce rates, because people don't use their intuition. They don't know, who's compatible with them, and they just go on instinct, numbers, and next thing you know, they're divorced. Whereas for me, I'm happily married for the past 15 years because, again, I took my time. Even though I met her, it was just one of those things where I went and I approached her quickly because it was a bet, but at the same time, it didn't happen too fast. You see what I'm saying to you? It was one of those things where I did approach, and then we ended up calling each other and having our things. But again, while she was in another country, I wasn't working at the U.S. Embassy in another country. She was the one who I was calling, despite the fact that I was actually being intimate with other women. But I wasn't generating a whole lot of muster and thought. It was just, hey, But guess what? With my wife, early on, there was a lot of, because again, cultural differences. She's from Eastern Europe, I'm from New York, so there was a lot of headbutting. But I invested so much. But not only did I invest so much, she was also able to remain intact. You see what I'm saying to you? She was, despite me being however I was, she was still there and at it and resistant to my, to my harshness, and I was resistant to her harshness, and we sort of just came together. So unlike a lot of people who, oh man, I can't deal with you, I can't deal with this, or there was never any, oh, I'm done with you, I'm leaving you, or I can't take you anymore. There was none of that. It was always just, it was really tough, but it was never like, I'm breaking up with you, right? There was none any of that. It was always ensuring that we stuck it out. And that's what I appreciate about her, is that she helped me because she showed me, just because you're arguing, just because you're going through all these kind of crazy things doesn't necessarily mean that, you're going to automatically, give up on that person. Stick it through. And, Russians and Eastern Europeans are known for sticking through things. And that's what she helped me, So she helped me in that way, in being able to stick through things. So anyway, I hope that helps, right? Remember, you need to cultivate your social skills, but initially you need to be self-aware. Know that you're not going to be chasing all these people. Number 2, be aware of your intuition. Develop your intuition. Be able to recall past experiences with people who you've had good relationships with. That's number 2. And number 3, also now use those social skills in order to put all these things together and to be able to now, create that relationship, and know that you're going to have to separate between investing your time and receiving that reward on your investment versus the quick, flings and so forth that may happen, and that, you may not be so invested. So it may happen and you'll be like, oh, I'm done with you, I'm good. So it's like when you hang out with someone, you don't really invest a lot of time. So the next day, it's like, I'm not going to see you anymore. Like, I don't need to see you. I don't need to call you anymore. I don't need to have these conversations with you anymore because I'm good. Versus if I invest my time with you and then, I give you all, I'm expecting some return on my investment. You see what I'm saying to you? Hope that explains everything. Johnny Fontana, Real World NF Scorpio. We out.